Our community holds these programs on a regular basis. It is our tradition to start the program with recitation of a verse from the Holy Quran and its translation. So we will start with that tradition, and I would like to welcome Ahmad to do the recitation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يأمركم أن تؤدوا الأمانات إلى أهلها وإذا حكمتم بين الناس أن تحكموا بالعدل إن الله نعم ما يعظكم به إن الله كان سميعا بصيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask Farouk Mahmood to come give the translation of the Arabic verses.
In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. Verily, Allah commands you to make over the trusts to those entitled to them, and that when you judge between men, you judge with justice. And surely excellent is that with which Allah admonishes you. Allah is all-hearing, all-seeing. O ye who believe, obey Allah and obey His Messenger and those who are in authority among you. And if you differ in anything among yourselves, refer it to Allah and His Messenger if you are believers in Allah in the last day. This is the best and most commendable in the end. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome the president of our Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the Seattle chapter, to come give the introduction and welcome address to you all, Irfan Chaudhry.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the Gracious, the Ever Merciful. Respected panelists and audience members, Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you. Welcome to the Muslims for Loyalty event. During the course of planning this event, we've had the opportunity to meet with over 30 police departments in the Puget Sound area and several public officials. I personally attended some of these meetings, and I can tell you that the level of support we received from each person we met was truly overwhelming. We not only received a tremendous amount of vocal support, but folks were sharing ideas on how we can build off of the momentum of this event to strengthen the bridges of our community. And this support is demonstrated further by those in attendance today. We have several officials from right here in Seattle and neighboring cities, as well as those who have taken a bit of a road trip to be with us today. Some of those in attendance include the Honorable Elizabeth Bejarano, a judge in the city of SeaTac, Captain Arpin of the Bellevue Police Department, Captain Mark Langford of the Tacoma Police Department, Chief of Police for the City of Renton, Kevin Milosevic, Chief of Police for the City of Kent, Ken Thomas, Chief of Police for the City of Mukilteo, Richard Caldwell, Chief of Police for the Port of Seattle, Colleen Wilson, Chief of Police for the City of Woodinville, Sidney Jackson, Chief of Police for the City of Federal Way, Brian Wilson, Chief of Police for the SeaTac Police Department, James Gradden, and Jim Spinden, a Federal Security Director for the TSA. We also have the pleasure of being joined by several representatives of our congressmen. From Congressman Jim McDermott's office, we have Darcy Northagle. From Congressman Jay Inslee's office, we have Patrick Hogan. And from Congressman Adam Smith's office, we have Deborah Enterman. We're also joined by a very good friend of the community, Karen Gusak, who is the mayor of the city of Snohomish. I have only read off a partial list of those in attendance representing a city or one of our public officials. Alan will be sharing with you the names of some of our other distinguished guests later in the program. But to all who are in attendance today, a special thank you for allocating time out of your busy weekend to come and hear about Islam's stance on loyalty to country. We hope and we are confident that you will walk away with a better understanding of what Muslims believe in and what Islam requires of Muslims as it relates to pledging allegiance to one's country. The Muslims for Loyalty event is actually part of a national initiative launched by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. It just so happens that the Seattle chapter was chosen to be designated as one of the areas where the first of many national symposiums to loyalty on country will be held. At a local level, we began planning for the event in earnest around late December, and when discussions first started about scheduling the event, a thought crossed my mind, and that was how I never imagined that one day I would need to help organize a program that spoke to loyalty to the United States of America. For in my mind, this has never been a question, and I'm sure the same is the case for millions of Muslims in our country. However, times have changed, and unfortunately, due to the actions of a handful of American Muslims, some in the U.S. are questioning the loyalty of Muslims in general. And honestly, you can't blame someone if they do have a negative perception in their mind about Islam or Muslims. When you have a Muslim in the army who took an oath to this country and our Constitution, and yet took up arms against his fellow Americans and shot and killed innocent and unarmed individuals in an act of cowardice, then what reaction can we expect from the public? I'm referring to Major Nadal Hassan and the heinous act he committed at Fort Hood on November 5th, 2009. Then there is Faisal Shahzad, the individual who attempted to trigger a bomb in Times Square. And had he been successful, he would have killed hundreds, if not thousands. And most recently, during the Christmas time frame, 19-year-old Muhammad Usman Mahmoud attempted to detonate a vehicle bomb during a Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Portland, Oregon. Unfortunately, individuals such as the three that I have mentioned have helped paint Islam and loyal Muslims in this country with a negative brush. As Muslims, we have two choices. We can either sit on the sidelines and say nothing, or we can stand up and condemn the actions of these individuals and share the true teachings of Islam. And that's what the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, along with other Muslims in attendance, are doing today. But before we hear from our keynote speaker, I wanted to share a few words of introduction about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We are followers of Islam and the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In Islam, Islam means peace through submission to the will of God. Members of the Ahmadiyya community are Muslims, that is, those who believe in Islam and hence submit themselves to the will of God. This community believes all things proceed from God and depend upon Him for support and sustenance. Members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, or Ahmadi Muslims, believe that God needs no support. He has no partner and no equal. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is a dynamic, fast-growing international revival movement within Islam. Founded in 1889, It spans over 195 countries with memberships exceeding in tens of millions. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is the only Islamic organization to believe that the long-awaited Messiah has come in the person of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, India. Ahmad claimed to be the metaphorical second coming of Jesus of Nazareth and the divine guide whose advent was foretold by the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community believes that God sent Ahmad, like Jesus, to end religious wars, condemn bloodshed, and reinstitute morality, justice, and peace. Ahmad's advent has brought about an unprecedented era of Islamic revival. He divested Islam of fanatical beliefs and practices by vigorously championing Islam's true and essential teachings. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community categorically rejects terrorism in any form. Over a century ago, Ahmad emphatically declared that an aggressive jihad by the sword has no place in Islam. In its place, he taught his followers to wage a bloodless, intellectual jihad of the pen to defend Islam. To this end, Ahmad penned over 80 books and tens of thousands of letters, delivered hundreds of lectures, and engaged in scores of public debates. His rigorous and rational defenses of Islam unsettled conventional Muslim thinking. As part of its effort to revive Islam, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community continues to spread Ahmad's teachings of moderation and restraint in the face of bitter opposition from parts of the Muslim world. Similarly, it is the only Islamic organization to endorse a separation of mosque and state. Over a century ago, Ahmad taught his followers to protect the sanctity of both religion and government by becoming righteous souls as well as loyal citizens. He cautioned against irrational interpretations of Quranic pronouncements and misimplications of Islamic law. He continually voiced his concerns over protecting the rights of God's creatures. Today, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community continues to be an advocate for universal human rights and protections for religious and other minorities. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is the foremost Islamic organization with a central spiritual leader. Over a century ago, Ahmad reminded his followers of God's promise to safeguard the message of Islam through Khilafat, the spiritual institution of successorship to prophethood. It believes that only spiritual successorship can uphold the true values of Islam and unite humanity. 5 spiritual leaders have succeeded Ahmad since his demise in 1908. Its 5th and current spiritual head, Mirza Masroor Ahmad, resides in the United Kingdom. Under the leadership of its spiritual successors, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has now built over 15,000 mosques, over 500 schools, and 30 hospitals. It has translated the Holy Quran into over 60 languages. It propagates the true teachings of Islam and the message of peace and tolerance through a 24-hour satellite television channel, the internet, and print publications. It has been at the forefront of worldwide disaster relief through an independent charitable organization, Humanity First. As mentioned earlier, we are established in over 195 countries, and here in the United States there are 71 local chapters. The Seattle chapter was founded over 20 years ago and helps serve the Puget Sound community. Our mosque is located in Lynden, Washington, where we've been located for the past 4 years. Our doors are open to visitors who may be interested in stopping by to learn more about Islam or simply wish to converse and share ideas. In conclusion, I thank you for your time today, and again, welcome to the Muslims for Loyalty event.
Okay, so as you see from your programs, we have 3 panelists that we've invited to give brief remarks to you all. and also make themselves available for a question and answer session, as well as our keynote speaker toward the end of the program. So during this time, I'd ask you to sort of hold your questions until the end, and I'll introduce each of our panelists and ask them to give their brief remarks. First, I'll start with Assistant Chief of the Seattle Police Department, Jim Pugel. And Jim has worked for the Seattle Police Department since 1983 and was a reserve officer for 2 years before being hired. He's been assigned to all areas of Seattle and served at all ranks. His previous assignments included uniformed patrol, the SWAT, dignitary protection, the training academy, sexual assault unit, executive aide to the chief, a watch commander and precinct commander before being promoted to assistant chief in 2001. As an assistant chief, Jim has been in charge of the Patrol Operations Bureau, Field Support Bureau, and has been the commander of the Investigation Bureau for the last 2 years. Jim has been the liaison to the East African Chiefs Advisory Council for the last 8 years. Jim is a graduate of the University of Washington with a BA in Political Science and English. He graduated from the FBI National Academy in 1997 and the Senior Management Institute for Police at Boston University in 2002. Jim is a member of the Board of Rowing Stewards for Women's and Men's Rowing at the University of Washington and a co-chair of NW Links. So please join me in welcoming Assistant Chief Jim Pugel.
Thank you again for taking time out of your day to be here tonight. I know it wasn't that warm out there, but the sun came out, and anytime the sun comes out, anytime before August, it's special. So thank you for giving up some hours of daylight to be here. I will keep my remarks brief, but I would like to make a few comments specific to law enforcement and law enforcement's relation to any group, whether religious, cultural, ethnic, or nationality. Policing in the United States is difficult. It's been said by many scholars and others that the police can only police with the consent of the community. And when the community is diverse, it can make it even more challenging. What we do with one group or with the entire community, how combined it is, can please some people and offend others. So it's incumbent upon police officers, and especially police commanders like myself and many of the police commanders out here tonight, to know our communities, to understand our communities, and to listen to our police officers and our detectives who have the daily contact with the various communities out there. I mentioned earlier that sometimes police work in the United States is fraught with mistakes. One of those mistakes years ago was the active participation by the Seattle Police Department and other police departments in getting the Japanese relocated during World War II. Because of the attacks on Pearl Harbor, there was a national uproar, and the most visible group were the Japanese. So, as you know with your history, the government said we have to relocate them away from the coast because we're going to be invaded, so let's round them up. Interesting enough, we didn't do that with the Germans because they could be assimilated and they weren't as visible. To one degree or another, that also happened with the Irish when they first came here and with the Italians when they first came here. What I've learned for the last 8-9 years as one of the liaisons to the Chiefs East African Advisory Council is that there are so many different types of East Africans, let alone myriad religions within the East African group. The food's amazing, but the culture is even richer. As I said earlier, it's important that myself as a leader and every police officer in the Seattle Police Department makes every effort, and every police officer in the Northwest, and in fact the United States, makes every effort to take official action based on a person's behavior, not on what they are, what they describe themselves as, the color of their skin, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican or independent, regardless of they're Catholic or Jewish, regardless of anything. It's imperative that we only take action based on an individual's action. And having been involved in law enforcement for years, 28 years now in the Northwest, and knowing many of the commanders out here in the room, having actually gone to the police academy with them, I know that they do that. It's somewhat difficult sometimes to go the Arab, Islamic culture and the East African cultures live throughout the Pacific Northwest. As a result of that, your community is being policed by upwards of 25 to 35 police departments. And it's very important that we as commanders and members of government work with you and all the other cultures and religious and ethnic organizations to make sure that our approach to policing is consistent. There's an effort right now by the commander of the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission, by Chief John Diaz and Chief Sue Rohr, among others, or I'm sorry, Sheriff Sue Rohr, among others, to implement what we are calling procedural justice. It's a theory that can work in practice, that all the police officers, because we are all trained in the same academy except for the Washington State Patrol, we should all receive the same training and the same approach to policing. So it's going to focus on making sure that each one of our contacts is the best that we can be. It may not be agreeable as far as a person may feel that they have not committed a crime, but as long as it's procedurally right and the law is fair and that law is enforced fairly, then we will feel that we would have accomplished our mission. So I'll keep it at that. Thank you again for letting me be here tonight, and once everyone's done, I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Our next panelist is Pramila Jayapal, who is the founder and executive director of One America. Pramila is a writer and an activist, and she is the founder and executive director of One America, the largest immigrant advocacy organization in Washington State. Under her leadership, One America has organized tens of thousands of immigrants from diverse communities around immigration reform, immigrant integration, and racial profiling, and achieved significant policy change. In addition, One America has registered and mobilized over 25,000 new American citizens to vote since 2006. Nationally, Ms. Jayapal has helped to lead the fight for due process and comprehensive immigration reform, serving as vice chair of the Rights Working Group National Coalition, as well as on the executive committee for the Fair Immigration Reform Movement. In 2008, she was appointed by Governor Gregoire as vice chair of the New Americans Policy Council. She and One America have received numerous recognitions and awards. Pramila is an immigrant from India and came to the U.S. when she was 16 to attend college. She received her U.S. citizenship in 2000 and is a proud mother of a 13-year-old. Pramila.
Thank you very much. Salam alaikum. I want to thank, first of all, our very distinguished hosts today for putting on this forum, and all of the distinguished speakers that are here. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be with you tonight. And my son, by the way, just turned 14, so I'm even feeling older now. Some of you know that my organization, One America, was founded right after 9/11, and sometimes we say that it was founded in response to the attacks, particularly against Arabs, Muslims, and South Asians in the wake of 9/11. But what I also wanted to say is that we were actually founded not just in response to those attacks, but because of a deep and abiding belief in the country that we live in today, the deep and abiding belief in the very values that make America so great, in the deep and abiding belief in a democracy that supports liberty and justice for all. What we know at One America and what we've found over the years is that our democracy is not complete if all of us are not participating, and that the very high ideals that our founders set for ourselves, incredibly high ideals, if you read the Constitution and think about every single word in that carefully crafted document, that those words were about reaching for the stars, that our founders were not afraid to have a vision that truly was as high as any vision that we could have. And they also understood that in order to achieve that vision, that every one of us would have to be vigilant all the time and work all the time to make sure that we were protecting those ideals. And so even as we came out of 9/11, working with the Muslim community, with the Arab and South Asian communities around hate crimes, individual discrimination, we worked with our good friends at the Justice Department. I've known Bruce for 10 years now, from the very beginning. We've worked with Chief Krolikowski and Chief Diaz at the Seattle Police Department. We've worked with governments, local governments, who understand that their communities are made up of every single person in that community. And that if a government is to function well, and if a city is to function well, and if a community is to function well, then we need to find ways to reach out, to integrate, and to make sure that every voice is heard. 10 years later, after 9/11, and that was a very defining moment for many of us, we are obviously in a different place, but unfortunately perhaps not so different. The world is still struggling with how to understand the diversity that we have in our world. And we are still struggling to understand the level of war and pain and suffering that is everywhere, all over. People individually and collectively are also working to understand, how do we stop ourselves from stereotyping? How do we stop ourselves from walking away from the picture that takes the actions of a few individuals and paints a broad brush across a community? How do we do that? And how do we do that in a time when the media plays a very active role in perpetrating certain stereotypes? I know, because we work with Muslims every day, and we have for the last 10 years, that the pain of a Muslim who lives here to have to, it was referred to at the very beginning, to have to show loyalty and patriotism and commitment to the very country that they have always considered their own, or the very country that they saw as the refuge, is a pain that's difficult to share. And so I want to say to the organizers of the forum tonight that all the people in the room are here because we understand that you are part of America, you are part of what makes this country great, and that every one of us is committed to figuring out how we continue to reach out and make sure that this dream that we have of America is continued. You know, I was sent some points, I think maybe all of us were, about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community before we came tonight. And as I read them, it struck me how much we have in common. And this strikes me all the time, by the way, because we work with not just Muslims, not just East Africans, not just South Asians. We work with Latinos, we work with Japanese Americans, we work with just about every community that you can imagine, because we believe that is the greatness of America. But these were the points that were sent to me: love for all and hatred for none, rejection of violence, separation of church and state, freedom of speech, practice, and association. And it reminded me that those are all of the very things that are so absolutely integral to America. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. And the history of the country is a history of love and welcome, of refuge from persecution, of tolerance. Bring us your tired, your hungry, yearning to breathe free. We all know those words from Emma Lazarus. And the concept of religious freedom is at the ultimate core of what this country stands for. The truth is that the first pioneers that came to America were seeking a nation that was founded on the principle that there should be a separation of church and state, and that all people should have the right to worship as they choose. So if there's a core of America that we stand for, it is that we believe in the best of everyone, and that every person contributing their full selves is ultimately what makes the democracy whole and what makes the country great. I wanted to just, I recently reread the speech that Mayor Michael Bloomberg from New York City gave in the wake of the controversy of the mosque being built at Ground Zero. And there's several moving pieces to that speech, but one thing stood out for me, and when he talked about the responders that went, the thousands of people that went to respond, and the thousands of people that were in the buildings, and the 400 people that died in responding to the attacks at Ground Zero. And he said that none of the responders or those inside the building, including many of the Muslims, stopped before helping somebody else out to ask, which God do you pray to? Not a single one. Because ultimately, the concept of loyalty is that we are here as immigrants in a new country, grateful for what we have, and committed to upholding everything that made it possible for us to be here. And if we don't do everything in our power to do that every day of our lives, then we will not be able to achieve the democracy we have. So I remain incredibly hopeful for what we can do tonight. And what we can do for the future. And very grateful to each and every one of you for coming out tonight, spending your Sunday evening to learn about what is the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and how do we reach out across the bonds. Because in the void of information, fear comes in. So the only way to fill that is for us to talk to each other, to work with each other, to fight with each other in a good way so that we can achieve the ideals of our democracy, and to be together firm and solid in democracy and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Finally, our third panelist is Assistant United States Attorney with the U.S. Justice Department for the Western District of Washington, Bruce Miyake. He is a third-generation Japanese-American born in Seattle, Washington. He received his Bachelor of Science in Accounting from the University of California, Berkeley. He received a law degree from Santa Clara University School of Law. From 96 to 95, or from 95 to 96, he worked as a deputy prosecuting attorney for the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, handling a variety of cases including rape, robbery, and murder. From 1996 to the present, he has worked as an assistant United States attorney for the United States Attorney's Office of the Western District of Washington and is currently assigned to Violent Crime and the Terrorism Unit. In his capacity, he is responsible for firearms offenses, sex trafficking offenses, narcotics trafficking, and gang prosecutions. He is also the Civil Rights Coordinator for the office, where he is responsible for hate crimes and other criminal civil rights violations. So please welcome Assistant United States Attorney Bruce Miyake.
I, like the other panelists, am honored to be at this forum, a very important forum. And as I think of loyalty, what really comes to mind is my father, Nisei, a second-generation Japanese-American, and all of his generation, who during World War II was suspected, as many of the Japanese Americans were suspected, of being disloyal and unpatriotic to the country. And this suspicion kind of grew to a point of a boiling point where all of the Japanese Americans on the West Coast were shepherded out of what they called Division I and put in concentration camps. And in order to prove their loyalty, many of the Nisei men signed up for the Army. And ultimately, they formed the 442nd, which became one of the most decorated fighting units in United States Army history. And they did that to prove their loyalty. And, you know, when I spoke to my dad or any of his friends, it was always something that was very important for them, that they proved their loyalty to this country. It was very important to them, and they were very proud of the fact that there was never, ever proved one act of terrorism. And when I think of that, and I think of the current situation since September 11th of 2001, and I hear the suspicions that are cast upon the Arab, Muslim, and immigrant communities, there are dangerous parallels. And there are many in today's society who, despite all of our education, despite all of our history, cast that same suspicion and paint Muslims as all terrorists. And there are many in, I don't want to get in trouble here, so there are many who in the media will actually promote that view. And this misdirected perception, as I think Pramila mentioned, is based upon ignorance, not understanding the Muslim religion or Middle Eastern cultures or immigrant cultures, and fear. And it's why forums such as this, I believe, are so important, because they serve not only for us to educate each other, but to also enlighten each other, and to show the rest of society that not all Muslims are terrorists, and that Muslims, like every other citizen or person living here in the United States, is loyal to the United States. It also drives home the point that we have to continue to always reach out to one another, because it's only through educating one another and communicating with one another that we can build a stronger, more united society. Because when we have that, we're better and we are safer. One of the primary missions of the Department of Justice is to seek justice for all of its citizens, including Muslims, immigrants, Sikhs, and all people living in the United States. And we do this, and I do this, by prosecuting hate crimes, official misconduct, human trafficking of vulnerable individuals. And my office does this on the civil side by enforcing the laws to prevent discrimination in the area of housing and employment. But we recognize that in order to effectively carry out this core mission, that we must have good communication with all of our communities, including the Muslim community. So I'm very pleased that this forum is happening, and I hope it's the beginning of many forums that will continue to occur. You know, it's funny because when you think of America, I think those of us who have been here for many years forget that we're really a country of immigrants, other than the Native Americans. That everybody has come here through a wave of immigration, and many of them have faced discrimination, but we are a country of immigrants. And it's through this diversity and this growing of our population and our citizens that we have become the country that we are. And it's our diversity that makes us great. And I think that's important, an important principle that we not forget. And it's also important when we think of loyalty as well. So thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists for those wonderful remarks. I think each of them shared a very nice, unique perspective from law enforcement to community service and community outreach to our Justice Department. I'd like to take a moment to recognize several other folks that have come and joined us from various police departments and our elected officials at this time. So I'd like to recognize Captain Patrick Arpin from the Bellevue Police Department, Captain John Strauss from the Kent Police Department, Detective Yanal Vich from the Seattle Police Department, Lieutenant Randy Drake from the Washington State Police Fusion Center, Sergeant Lance from the Washington State Fusion Center, Lieutenant Robert Sharp from the Washington State Police of Snohomish County, and board member of One America, Abdullah Jama, Deputy Director of International Visitor Program, Haley Kenlin, Assistant Chief of Police for the Tukwila Police Department, Donald Lincoln, Council Member for the City of Newcastle, Lisa Jensen, Police Officer from the Redmond Police Department, Julie Beard, Chief of the University of Washington Police Department, John Vinson, Commander in the U.S. Coast Guard, Kent Chapilka. And finally, we have representative of the Washington State House of Representatives for the 41st District, Marcy Maxwell. So thank you all of those folks that have taken your time to come represent your departments, your districts at this Muslims for Loyalty event. It means a lot to us that, that our public service officials and folks that are in that sphere come out and support us. It's really great to see. Thank you all. Finally, I've come to our keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker is our National Vice President and Missionary in Charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the United States, Naseem Mahdi. Mr. Mahdi has dedicated his life to serving Islam and spreading its love, its message of peace and love. In 1977, after completing a 7-year missionary training program with heavy emphasis on comparative religion from the Missionary Training College of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Rabwa, Pakistan, Mr. Mahdi was appointed to lead the Ahmadiyya Muslim community of Switzerland. 8 years later, he was assigned to Canada, where he led the Ahmadiyya Muslim community there for 25 years. During his service in Canada, he worked with many influential figures, including the current and recent Prime Minister of Canada. The biggest mosque in North America, Bait Nur in Calgary, was built under his direction and inaugurated in 2008. In 2010, he began a new position as National Vice President and Missionary in Charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the United States. Since arriving in the United States, Mr. Mahdi has been speaking regularly to both media and the community leaders to illuminate the position of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community on major issues relating to Islam and Muslims living in the United States. Please join me in welcoming Naseem Mahdi.
Following the Muslim tradition, I will start my half-an-hour talk with the short recitation of the Holy Quran. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. My dear brothers and sisters in faith, and all the dignitaries and representatives of different police departments, I have never felt so safe as I do today in the presence of so many police officers, and some of them are in their beautiful uniform. We salute you, and we are sincerely grateful to you that you all put your lives in danger to provide us safety and security. May God bless you all. I would like to start with the disclaimer that I don't claim to represent all different denominations of Islam. There are about 1.4 billion Muslims, and there are 73 different sects and denominations. My talk is based on the interpretation of Islam given by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, the founder of our community, who founded our community in 1889 in India and claimed to be the Messiah of the latter days. Secondly, I will not be giving any of my personal opinion. I will be speaking based on the Holy Quran, the scripture of Islam, so that I can prove that what I say is from the source and not a personal opinion. The word Islam means peace and submission, and the Muslim greeting, as you all know, is Assalamu alaikum, peace be on you. Hebrew and Arabic are very close, languages, and the word shalom is the same word as salam in Arabic. And Muslims on daily basis say this greeting of peace to everybody. In the Holy Quran, 100 attributes of God are mentioned, and one is as-salam, which means source of peace and security. Islam teaches us to promote peace. And if someone in today's world is doing otherwise, I can assure you he or she is not giving you the real or showing you the real picture of Islam. The Holy Quran says if someone kills one person, it will be considered as he has killed whole humanity. This is a verse from the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran also teaches us to believe in all the prophets. Pamela has mentioned about 9/11. I very vividly remember that morning when I was watching CNN and saw this horrible crime against humanity. And my first fear was that I hope these are not some so-called Muslim fanatics. And the first thing I did was immediately picked up the phone and sent a message to Right Honorable Jean Chrétien, the Prime Minister of Canada, whom I knew personally, that I don't know the details, but I offer you 10,000 volunteers who will give their blood for these victims. On another occasion, a very senior member of his cabinet mentioned that there were some unfortunate Muslims who were celebrating that massacre, and there was a community who was offering their blood for those victims. Recently, another unfortunate so-called Muslim tried to detonate a bomb at Times Square in New York. And I immediately called a press conference in Washington in the National Press Club and told the media that we will respond with a campaign which will be across the nation, and we will give this message to everyone that Islam means peace and not terrorism. And I am reporting to you that by the grace of God, with the help of thousands of volunteers and by putting ads on buses of New York, Washington, Detroit, Los Angeles, and many other cities with the big banners of Muslims for Peace. And this flyer in millions have been distributed all across the country. And this shows no to terrorism. And then the same verse, whosoever killed a person, it shall be as if he killed all humanity. And with the help of media, electronic and print, we were able to reach 60 million Americans with this message. Now, this year, we have started a campaign, Muslims for Loyalty. And now this flyer is being distributed door to door. And you will find a big, or perhaps the biggest billboard, electronic billboard in Times Square, which is giving this message every hour. Muslims are for loyalty to the homeland, United States of America. Unfortunately, when we see the results of some polls, majority of the Americans do not trust Muslims. When in the poll this question was raised, would you like to have a Muslim neighbor? Majority of the respondents said no. People have questioned their loyalty. They say we don't know whether they are loyal citizens or not. People are afraid of the Sharia, the Muslim law, because this has been mentioned by some people that Muslims are all out to change the Constitution of the United States of America and bring the law of the Holy Quran, and in which they say there will be no right for women and there will be no right for, the fundamental human rights will not be guaranteed, etc., etc. My response and the response of all the Ahmadi Muslims all over the world is that there is no conflict in our mind, because our holy book, the Holy Quran, says that you should be loyal to those who are in authority amongst you. The verses, two verses were recited in the very beginning of the program. The first was, verily Allah commands you to make over the trust to those entitled to them, and that when you govern people, govern with justice. And surely excellent is that with which Allah admonishes you. Allah is all hearing, all seeing. Allah is the name of God in Arabic. If you see the translation of Bible in Arabic, you will see the word Allah. So don't think that Allah is something else and they have a different God. We are talking of the same God. In this verse, God does not say that you should give the trust to those people who are of your faith. It says those who are entitled. This could be your trust of your vote. And there is also no mention that this commandment is specifically given to you if you are under an Islamic government. So this is a general commandment that you should give your trust to those who are entitled to that, And when they are given this trust, they should govern with justice. So those people who deliver justice and guarantee that they are trustworthy people, there shouldn't be any problem for you. And this shows that, and this verse could be one of many which could be presented, that Islam promotes separation of state and the mosque. And the next verse in the same chapter is chapter 4, O ye who believe, obey Allah and obey His messenger, and those who are in authority among you. The difference between Ahmadi Muslims and some other non-Ahmadi Muslims is they say God has said from amongst you, it means that they should be Muslims. We say, and we can give a lot of arguments in our favor, that those who are in authority are all governments wherever we are. You cannot say that I will live in the United States of America, I can get all the benefits of this beautiful country, but my loyalties are somewhere else because I was born somewhere and never lived there, or most of my time I have lived in the United States, but my loyalties are somewhere else. So we say that this verse is the fundamental verse which shows that this is a commandment of God. You should be loyal to the state where you live. Then there are questions about the day-to-day behavior of a Muslim. I could have brought you so many verses from the Quran where it says, and the essence of those verses is that a true Muslim never ever creates disorder in the land. There's one verse, Inna Allaha la yuhibbul fasad, verily Allah does not love disorder of any kind. So this question is, being discussed in many other countries where you see these uprisings in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Algeria, in Bahrain. Most of the people, by and large, have demonstrated their consent against the state with peaceful means. And we say that if you are loyal to a country, you have the right to show your dissent if necessary. Sometimes I have been discussing this with my fellow African Americans, and they raise these questions, and that how could you say that we should be loyal to those who have wronged against us for centuries? And I always tell them, and I'm involved with them, and I was part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s celebrations in the recent past. I have been visiting their communities in Chicago, in St. Louis, in Milwaukee, and so many other places. And I'm sitting with them that there has to be a time of reconciliation. And you should reconcile and say the past is past, and let us have a new start in this great country where one of yours has become the President of the United States of America. What else you want? But if you will continue to live in the past and the atrocities committed against you, you will never be able to make progress. And especially to the Muslims, African Americans, my message has been and is that let us reconcile and build our communities, promote education, give them hope. Don't talk about discrimination, because if you are always talking about discrimination, you are destroying your next generation. So the point I'm making is that the Holy Quran does not give us permission to create any kind of disorder. But as we know, in democracy, a very important pillar is your dissent, your opposition. If you oppose the government, this does not mean that you are not loyal. You can have your opposition, you can have your dissent, you can have your argument, you can go to courts, and this is the beauty of democracy. This is the beauty of United States of America. But you cannot create disorder and you cannot be disloyal. The next point is gratitude. Then this is also a subject discussed in the Holy Quran in so many verses. God says that you should be grateful to all those bounties which has been bestowed upon you. Don't you see how much we are blessed in this country? I just took a sip of water. I'm involved in an international organization, Humanity First, and we have one program of this organization, Water for Life. We are, drilling water wells in African countries, and also we have started now in Guatemala and going to other South American countries. There are perhaps majority of the population of the world do not have clean water. One of our team was visiting Burkina Faso, a French African country, and they said that we went to a village and there was no water, not at all, no water. So what do you do? These were a few hundred families, a small village. They said that every morning a donkey cart goes and from a 7-8 miles distance, only one drum of water is brought. And that is sufficient for all. And then they found out that some organization drilled a well and that was broken. And that representative of ours, he said, I'm not leaving this place until I fix this problem. They're not blessed that they can go to Home Depot and buy those things and fix it. It took 1 week to just bring some nuts and bolts. And they fixed that problem. And that person, when he was telling me the story, he was in tears. He said, I could see light on the faces of those children, those who are waiting to say, yes, we also have water in our village. How many times we thank God for this blessing? And how many gallons we waste in our 1-hour shower on a holiday. So think about it. I'm not talking of this. I'm talking of the freedom of religion. We enjoy this in great country. Freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of assembly. And majority of the people in the world do not have these freedoms. And we are not grateful. And the Holy Quran says that, and remember also the time when your Lord declared, if you are grateful, I will surely bestow more favors on you, but if you are ungrateful, then know that my punishment is severe indeed. What is that punishment? In my estimation, the punishment is that those freedoms are then taken away if you are not grateful. And we can see these kind of happenings in the history. The Holy Prophet Muhammad said, he who does not thank people cannot be thankful to God. So this is the message to Muslims and to everybody, but I'm saying to Muslims, how could you live in a beautiful country like United States of America, having all these freedoms and having all the opportunities for your kids, better schooling, better education, better businesses? I hope this is over, the time which we are going through, but by and large, we are blessed. how many type of, bread and butter and cheese you can have in your fridge, and how much food you have. And there are people who are homeless and living. Go to Mumbai, millions of people living on the streets, and they have nothing to eat and nowhere to go. Think about it. And think about that freedom which we enjoy. And if someone says that I'm not grateful to this country, he is ungrateful and he will face the wrath of God according to that verse. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, love of your homeland, and the word watan in Arabic he uses, it is homeland. It means where you live, where you reside. It's not place of your birth. And Prophet Muhammad lived in Mecca for 53 years. And then he had to leave because of persecution and went to Medina. And then he made Medina his homeland. He always talked of Mecca, but he said, now I have migrated and Medina is my home. So he said, love of your homeland, your place of residence is part of your faith. It is not that whether you love your country or whether you don't love your country, it is incumbent upon all the Muslims to love their homeland. And the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community says that it's not only love. He said that should be sincere love and obedience to your homeland. That should not be the lip service, that you say that we are loyal, but in your heart you are not. Sincere love and sincere obedience. And then he says, if you are really sincere about this, you pray for your homeland and pray for those who have given you justice and freedom. So my brothers and sisters, I can assure you that Islam is very clear about this point, and I have quoted from the Quran, the Word of God, our scripture. And nobody should have this misunderstanding that what we say cannot be supported from the main sources of Islam. Now what are we then proposing? Our proposal is that we must snatch flag of Islam away from the hands of extremists. I was interviewed by a radio station before I came here, and the anchor said, there are extremists in every faith. I said, yes, but I'm sure those extremists are in small minorities. And I can assure you that the extremists among the Muslims are also in a very small minority. And this is high time that all the moderate believers and non-believers, Muslims and Christians and Jews and Sikhs and Hindus and the atheists, we should get together and we should work together. Otherwise, just imagine a United States of America where nobody is giving you a positive message. If these extremists keep on talking, and whatever their religion they have, this extremism doesn't have any religion, and they keep on talking and they keep on polarizing every issue, this will be a big disaster for us and for this great country. So I invite all Muslims, and I invite all Christians and Jews, and I invite all the Hindus and the Sikhs. I invite all the believers, whether they are part of an organized religion or whether they are not part of an organized religion. And I invite all the moderate atheists. Let us work together, because there are so many there are more commonalities between us than our differences. And if we are ready to work together. That is how we can change the face of the world. I tell my Muslim brothers and sisters that as a Muslim you cannot live like hypocrites. You cannot enjoy all the goodies of this country and your loyalties are somewhere else. And I sometimes said, and I was quoted in the press, and some people did not like it, but I said it and I'm going to say this, that if you are living like a hypocrite, and if you are enjoying all the goodies of this great country, and you are not loyal, then go home and live there where your loyalties are. But if you are here and enjoy all the goodness of this country, there is only one way, that you should be loyal, you should be grateful, and you should be sincere to this country. If we don't do that, then you are going to damage your financial, your political, social, and national and international interest, and this is going to ruin you, oh my Muslim brothers. In the end, I want to reiterate once again that terrorism has never had a place in Islam. We have been condemning terrorism ever since our community was formed over 120 years ago. And I condemn it even today, and we will continue to do that without fear of anybody, because this is the truth, and the truth will prevail even if we have to give our lives as a sacrifice for this good cause. For this good cause. May God bless you. May God bless United States of America.
The next portion of our program will be the question and answer session. If you still are thinking of a question, go ahead and write it, and we will go through them. I know that, Jim, you have to leave early, so there are some questions for you. So maybe we'll get to those first, and if you need to leave, just go ahead and let us know.
I think I'll be okay.
Okay, all right, fantastic. All right, this one question is to both Jim and Bruce. The question is, the experience of many Muslims and Hispanic communities today is one of fear of the state. The FBI, the Border Patrol, ICE are routinely violating basic rights. The erosion of habeas corpus, privacy rights, freedom from surveillance continues unabated. How do you intend to advance civil liberty protections?
You know, the way that we try and ensure that civil liberties are being honored is that my office will typically review many of the requests for surveillance. Now, we're not always in the loop, but we try and ensure that all of the legal requirements are met. Sometimes I believe that there will always be disagreements about what government is doing. The government believes that they have a legitimate security interest to engage in the activity, and it'll feel like, I think, to many of the people in the community that this is overstepping. That's not always the case, but we try and be vigilant to make sure that we are not overstepping those bounds. It's not always easy, and as I said, there will always be disagreements, but we try and honor our legal obligation to the Constitution in that regard.
Thank you, Bruce. Speaking more to a local aspect, As I mentioned earlier, there are 39 police departments just in King County alone. There's a lot of interagency investigations. Suspected criminal activity doesn't necessarily respect borders of a city or a county or even a nation sometimes. So I know that it's very important that each officer knows and that is reinforced and reminded that any official action by the government, specifically a police officer or a police investigator, can only be done based on facts. And those facts, whether they're presented to a U.S. attorney or to a King County attorney or to a city attorney, it has to be behaviorally based, regardless of who the person is, what organization they are not associated with or associated with. Seattle specifically has a very strict ordinance. It's called the Investigations Ordinance that specifically prohibits any investigations of a religious, of a political group, or based on one's sexual orientation. And we have a civilian auditor that can freely come in and look at any of our investigations. If we do believe that a crime is going to be committed, we have to be very specific, have that in writing, and a judge and the chief have to look at that. But it's something that we always have to work on. Additionally, we just have to make sure every interaction that we have on a daily basis with each individual person is one of respect and trust, and that's the only way that we'll get the same in return.
If I could just quickly say something on that. I think that it's very important that there are also efforts to constantly make sure that organizations of the state are upholding the civil rights and civil liberties, and I think that the role that our organization, along with many others, have tried to play is to point out that really our utmost expression of loyalty and gratitude to the country is to actually challenge the places where we see breaks in that. And the reality of the history of America is that there have been breaks. And Bruce talked very movingly about the internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans in 1942. We certainly know about the civil rights movement. While many of those things have been in the past, there are conditions that lend themselves to overreaches of government, and it is absolutely a part of our democracy in America to make sure that we are challenging those in the best spirit of democracy and in the best spirit of upholding that justice for all.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I just wanted to note, we have a lot of questions, and we just have a few minutes. We're scheduled for dinner at 6:30, so I'll try to get to, I'm just going to pick a few of these, and maybe you can ask the panelists during the dinner time if you have other questions. This one is to Mr. Mahdi, around if you could distinguish between Islam's definition of loyalty and dissent and political dissent.
Islam's.
Yeah, the question is if you could distinguish between Islam's definition of loyalty and dissent and political dissent. Like how can you dissent?
As I mentioned, dissent is in the political arena is important. Otherwise, there is no democracy. And democracy has a main pillar, which is the right of dissent and opposition. The same thing is in religion of Islam. Prophet Muhammad said, "Ikhtilafu ummati rahmatun." The disagreement of my people is a source of blessings. So if there is a dissent, in the religion, it is a source of blessing, because only then you will be able to make progress and understand better. But one has to always keep in mind that we will never be able to create disorder. We'll never be able to get involved in a violent civil disobedience. We'll never be able to get involved in treason. And that is for for the religion and as well as for under a political system, that a Muslim will never ever commit treason and never ever get involved in any kind of disorder.
Okay. There's another set of questions, and I'll just sort of ask them together. I think they're related. Also for Mr. Mahdi, is that what is the disconnect among the Muslim community and the teachings of peace through the Quran? And the related question is, are there any other sects, the 73 sects and denominations in the United States, that are of concern to us? And then along that same vein, shouldn't the good Muslim groups, do more to expel the radical elements? So that's sort of theme.
As I mentioned, the vast majority of the Muslims are law-abiding, loyal, and moderate people. But this is how a small minority of clerics have hijacked the agenda of Islam. So, whether they are Sunnis or Shiites, whether they are of this denomination or that denomination, it remains all over the world. The majority is not like that. And this is, unfortunately, that small minority has not only hijacked the agenda, but they are also increasing, and unfortunately, they are attacking our next generation. And this is the biggest fear we face in future, that how the young Muslims to a terrorist. So this fear is there. If we don't do anything and then be silent, I don't think that silence is an option for us. We have to speak out and we have to take care of our next generation. I'm talking of all Muslims. By the grace of God, we don't see any problem in our community, but we should never take things for granted. And we should say that until and unless we safeguard our next generation, we will be in serious trouble.
Okay. Thank you. Why not televise these forums on all networks so that the public can hear these truths?
That's an excellent question, and it is something actually we worked quite vigorously at. We actually have a national media team, and Alam is our local public affairs secretary as well, and I can tell you we reached out to all of the local networks here. Mr. Mahdi referred to some local radio station interviews he did yesterday as well as today. So we did our best and invited all of the media outlets to this event. So hopefully the next time we hold one of these, they'll be more encouraged to show up, because I think, and I mentioned this during another radio interview, which is most of our citizens only get to see that 30-second clip of a Muslim being, pointed out as a terrorist or what have you. Now, to be able to see this forum, that's a different thing, and it will leave a different perception with those individuals. So we'll continue the fight on our end to ensure that these get broadcasted more publicly and widely in the future.
Thank you.
The way we conclude our functions, just the way we began with prayer, we end with a silent prayer. And I would like to request Naseem Mahdi to lead us in this silent prayer, where it is truly a silent one, and please join us if you would care to, and he will conduct the prayer.
Let us pray for peace on earth, and let us thank God for all the bounties He has bestowed upon us, and may He accept us as a grateful servant of His. So please join me in silent prayer. Allahumma ameen. Thank you.
Well, first off, I found it very educational. I learned a lot about the Muslim religion, which I thought was interesting. And citing the Quran, as he did the main speaker, I thought that was very, very well done. I thought it was very informative, and I learned a lot. I thought it was very educational to me. And you know, I think that he was right on when he says there's a lot of people who kind of want to paint a broad brush of all Muslims, you know, are terrorists. And I think his approach is right on, that we need to break that down.
Thank you. And is there sort of any takeaways that you would have from the event here? Anything that you might share with the community also?
Well, I think we have to be aware of how our internal feelings are, and be aware that not to broad brush everyone with that same stroke, that because there are a few radicals, a few people of every religion that are radical, that we got to treat people as a person.
I am Jim Gradden. I'm the Chief of Police for the city of SeaTac. We have a large Somali population in our city, a large business community of Muslims, and so it's critical that we understand the Muslim religion, and that there are very positive aspects that we need to work with.
And I thought it was really great. I think that it's been a long time coming where somebody would actually come out and speak very forcefully about the verses in the Quran that speak to nonviolence, speak to killing one person is the same as killing all of humankind. And I know many Muslims deliver this message and have many Muslim friends and work very actively in interfaith, but I don't think anything has gotten this much press coverage.
And it's reaffirming to know that the community is open to law enforcement and wants to hear the views of law enforcement, and then also reach out and express themselves. And so I appreciate that, and I'll take this experience back to my agency and share it with the rest of my coworkers. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.